Welcome to Detroit's love, the Motor City. Detroit's love, can't nothing stop me. Detroit's love, I love my city. Detroit's love.
Another episode of Middle Ground with JLE L.L.C, where we treat you like family. Have another amazing guest for you today. We have the financial planning, retirement planning, insurance planning, education funding, and business planning financial Alex Hollingsworth. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, man. Thank you for having me.
Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. I'm a financial advisor. I've been in finance for I don't know, almost 20 years now. Out of Maryland, and just enjoy talking about money. Enjoy talking about helping people figure out what they need to do, and generational wealth, which is obviously a large conversation in the Black community. And so I enjoy that kind of stuff, man. I'm married. My wife is a mental health therapist. She owns her own company. And so around here, we believe health is wealth and wealth is health. So, again, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you for sharing your journey. So,
no problem.
First question, what led you?
What'd you say?
What led you to this path?
This is a true story. So my goal, I was always going to be an attorney. That was my job. I wanted to be an attorney. I felt like African Americans never got a fair shake in court. 2022, we probably still aren't, right? But this was back in 1999, the year 2000, when I was getting out of high school, and my goal was to become an attorney. So I went to school, majored in criminal justice, and at the time I was going to Shaw University down in North Carolina, HBCU. Shout out to the Shaw Bears, and ended up coming back home, and my goal was to go to Morgan State. Shout out to Morgan. One of my younger brothers, actually graduated from there many years later. But anyway, again, was going to go be an attorney. And I was at the time back at my mom's house, living in her basement and not knowing kind of what I was going to do next, man. Yep.
Been there before.
A friend said, a friend was applying for jobs at banks, and true story. She said, "Your name sounds like a banker name. You should apply."
Okay.
And that that comment, that push, made me apply for a teller position at Provident Bank in Baltimore. Provident's gone now. M&T Bank has since bought them out. But yeah, I applied for a job at Provident, and I interviewed with a woman who's probably one of the most inspirational people in my career. Her name is Jackie Jackson. And she said to me at the time, she said, in so many words, there's a lot of opportunity for you in this field. There's not a lot of Black men here, and I think you can go far. And man, thank God for Jackie, because at the time I was 21 years old. I was out having a good time, partying. I didn't take life very seriously. But Jackie saw something in me, and I remember back then, I used to read the Wall Street Journal, like the physical paper.
Okay,
so
I remember that.
Obviously, this is 20 years ago, right? So I used to. Jackie was a licensed financial representative, and she could do investments, and so she had the Wall Street Journal sent to her office. Well, I would get it and read it, and she noticed that I was reading it all the time. So then she asked me, "Hey, did I ever want to become an advisor?" And at the time, I thought about it. But I decided to go on a different path, say in banking, but go up the management train, and then the market crashes in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And at that point I said, I'm not going to go into investing. For me, it didn't make sense. The market had fallen. But I eventually ended up getting into commercial banking, business banking. So I was managing, the banking portfolios of companies with up to $30 million in revenue. And I did that for about a decade, and then really just grew tired of the banking world. I had two goals. Once I got into banking, I basically had two goals, and it was to get get a vice president title, and to make six figures. Those are my
Okay.
two goals.
Not a bad
Along
goal.
with, well, along with helping people. Like those are just my two personal
Yeah.
goals. But I wanted to help people. And when I got there, it was great. And I got to that level for a number of years. And then I felt burned out, felt like I wasn't helping people the way that I thought I would. And I
Mhm.
walked away. I mean, I mentioned to my wife, I said, look, I think I'm burned out. This just isn't for me anymore. And she said, take all the time you need. And I took 4 months and made a decision to get into financial advising. And it's just funny how kind of my career went full circle, because years ago, Jackie thought that I should go into that. And here I am now. That's what I do. So it's kind of a long-winded,
Oh,
short-winded version
you
of
good.
my career.
This show, bro, is take as long as you need. It's good. A lot of people don't really see going to financial stuff. Really, it's
Mhm.
like every other type of field, not being a financial advisor. So,
Well,
what does a financial advisor do?
man, what don't we do is probably the better question. So, I talk to people about basically any and everything, like
Okay.
whatever, every advisor has a different strategy. But for me, I definitely talk about one's financial goals, but I also talk about their personal and professional goals, because those things oftentimes dictate your financial circumstances. And so,
True.
what I mean by that is, if your personal goals are, to get married, have a family, buy a home, then clearly that has an impact on you financially. And your professional goals, depending on what career trajectory you're on, or if you want to go back to college or whatever it is you want to do professionally, that also has an impact on you financially. So I talk a lot
True.
about what are your personal professional goals. And then as it relates to finances, you know, it doesn't matter if somebody is on the wealthier spectrum, or they're on the minimum wage spectrum, if you will. Doesn't matter. People's goals are all the same. Their means to achieve them may be different, but I spend a lot of time talking about retirement, and they talk about, for some people, education planning for their children. They want to make sure they help their kids pay for college. Help them figure out, do they have the means to buy their first home or second home? Are they getting married? Weddings cost a lot of money. We talk about their mortality, and, you know, or how do you view life insurance, and how do you want to be buried or cremated? And do you want to pass money on to your children or grandchildren, or to social causes? And at times I feel like a therapist, because when you talk to people about money, it elicits a
Okay.
lot of emotion, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of emotion. And in a number of cases that I've had, I've sat down with husbands and wives, and they've jointly never talked about it. So when we meet, it's oftentimes they've been married a number of years, but they've never had an actual financial conversation. And
Mm.
we meet, they then find out they have different outlooks on money. And so
Mm.
that can be an interesting dynamic as well. So I've been in meetings,
Yeah.
man, where one
Yeah.
spouse didn't know the other spouse had a ton of debt, and they've been married a number of years. So
Woo-wee.
it's an interesting conversation.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something right there. Like, hey, same team now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't throw nothing at nobody. And ask them questions already. Don't be mad if they got that much debt. Debt we make you get upset. Like, wait a minute, what's your credit score?
Mm-hmm.
You'll think maybe y'all had them conversations, but some people, for whatever reason, just we just pay bills, keep it moving. Like, but you don't know they got a 300 credit score. That's why it's hard for y'all to get stuff if y'all do it together.
You need to be honest with each other. Just be
Yeah.
honest, and love is all. In my opinion, love is your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But financial issues is one of the leading causes of divorce. So you need to be on the same page as it relates financially, and just be honest from the beginning, and hopefully things work out. But I've been in some interesting meetings.
Oh, I can believe that. So, what are some lessons you learned about finance?
So as a child, my grandfather was born in the late 1930s, early 1940s.
Ooh,
And so, I was born in 1981, right? So by the time
okay.
I come along, and I'm 15, 16, 17, 18, my grandfather would say things like, pay for everything in cash. You don't need credit. Don't get credit cards. And, you know, um, one of the reasons I think he felt that way is because he came up in a time where Black people couldn't get credit, and you
True.
had to have cash. And resources for Black people in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, they were slim, right? So
Absolutely.
here I am growing up in the 80s and 90s and coming into the 2000s. I'm learning you have to have credit. You need to understand how to use it. You have to understand how it can work to your advantage. And as I grew up, no one talked about investing. People, talked about saving, like save your money, but no
Mhm.
one talked about the various vehicles in which you can use to save. That just wasn't talked about. And so, just from a personal perspective, I took those things, and then as I learned more and more about money, it dawned on me that there was just so much missing from our community that it isn't talked about enough. And I think that, oftentimes people live check to check, so they don't talk to their kids about it. It's the old saying, stay in a child's place. But but look, that's very, very
Yeah.
old school, man. I'm a big believer in,
Yeah.
obviously your kids don't need to know everything, but I think that it would behoove you to teach your kids about your financial circumstances so that they can learn those lessons as they get older, and don't keep everything so secret, so that when, as parents, we get older and we get sick or we pass away and our kids find out, well, there's no inheritance, it's just debt left over, right? Like you need to be,
Absolutely.
be more honest about what one's situation is. And so, those are things that I just personally learned. And then, just being in the finance world myself, for me personally, it just opened the door to so many opportunities that probably a lot of people don't have. And so, those, I carry those lessons with me all the time. I think about my grandfather taught me growing up, and then I think about, well, what can I do to build upon that? Because, as I have a child, I can teach him what finance is like in 2022, but what finance may look like for him in 2042 is very different. The world would look very different financially. So I
That's
need to
true.
prepare him as best as I can for the what ifs of what his future may look like.
That's true. Because I remember in 2000, I went to get a 2000 Honda. I'm like, done the right stuff. I'm good.
Mhm,
I got some money to put down. Oh, we can't mess with you. I'm like, what you talking about?
mhm.
Your credit too good. And I'm like, okay, talking like I'm too. What you mean? Well, you don't have no credit, so we don't have a history of you getting something and paying it off. Like, but why would I have debt if I got money to take care of it? Nah, you go get a credit card, buy a candy bar, pay it off, do it for
Mhm.
like 6 months. I'm like, for real? And I
Yep.
had to do that just to get into the system, the matrix. So they see I have a history of I pay my debts. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I had never heard that before.
Yep. You have to leverage debt. And that's what wealthy people do. They leverage debt. You know, you borrow it at 3%, you get a return, and then you invest and get 8%. Well, that nets you 5. I mean, there's ways to go about it, and I just think those things aren't talked about enough.
Nah, especially in schools. You don't really hear about finance really.
No, I'm a big proponent of. I think that finance should be taught. Basic finances should be taught in high school and middle school. When I went to
Yeah.
school, they used to teach home economics. I don't know if they do anymore, but in middle school they
I
taught
remember that.
home economics. Yeah,
Decker
and they
store, dog used to run in high school to get an idea how the whole business system worked.
Yep. And I remember in ninth grade they had shop class and they had automotive class. I mean, basic life skills that they used to do in school. Now, whether they do it today, I don't know. They probably don't. But one of the things that was missing even when we were in school, but even now, there should be classes on finance. They should have professionals coming in there teaching kids, readying them for the real world. I'm a big believer in education. My wife has 2 degrees, and she may or may not go back and get her PhD. And I'm a big believer in education. But I also think that a lot of times with college, we spend a lot of times teaching kids stuff that they're never going to use in real life. They're just not, right? You're in school
Yeah.
for 4 years. There's the first 2 years you're finding yourself. You may not even have a major yet, so you're taking general courses
Yeah.
that oftentimes don't matter in real life. And so I think that even colleges miss an opportunity to potentially teach kids more life skills. But I don't have enough power to make those changes. So
Yeah, I guess them general eds would be more of a filler. So you don't go straight to your college and give you a moment to grow up and really figure out what you want to do. Because you go straight to engineering, I don't like it. oh, do you really want to do this? Think about it.
Mhm.
And then you need to go get an internship because you have all the book sense, but you ain't got no experience.
Right.
And
Yep.
like, dang, what? Like, ain't got experience. Like, I remember when I was doing engineering at first, before I eventually graduated with a management degree. I came across a few people I went to school with, and I'm like, dude, how you been? Like, man, I make like 80 grand and I hate it. I'm like, bro, you make 80 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Your pocket's all right. Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, they told us it'd be boring. You'll make a lot of money. So you thought they were joking? Because they was playing?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You better find something to love about the 80 grand to take care of yourself and your family. You could be starving. Like, why you look like that? Like, dog, I'm gonna give you another way. Look at it, bro. Quit playing. We just crack up in class all the time. 80 grand ain't a bad living.
No,
Eating
it's
at a
not.
nice restaurant, you can probably tip nice, got a nice vehicle. 80 grand ain't that bad as you think.
Mm-hmm.
Read a book on your
Yep.
spare time. Because you could be making 20 grand. Oh no, like okay, see your face frowned up, like okay, so you've been blessed. You worked at it, you there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't work on something else. I'm saying you got the money to become an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Then they walked away with a different vibe, like, come on, man, I'm walking around this planet like, oh my God, I'm making 80 grand. What? Stop that nonsense. That's still good money, even at 22.
Yep.
It's 40s, 30 grand. Mm-mm. You can get by if you got good financial skills, but comfortable is always better.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Now, what are some common issues people make from what your experience you've seen?
Sometimes I think that people think they know when they really don't. You know,
What you mean
and
by that?
a lot of times I'll tell clients, so they may, they might invest in the market, or they might, be able to pick out insurance policies or whatever it is. And,
Mm-hmm.
So what do they, their thing is, what do I need to pay you for? Right. And I always tell people things like this. So take a doctor or a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So, your doctor probably tells you, if you have a cough or you have an ache or something happens, don't Google it. Don't go to WebMD, because there's, internet has a ton of information, a lot of great information.
True.
But you can get yourself in trouble when you're the one trying to self-diagnose yourself. You need to go see a professional. Same thing with an attorney. You may get a ticket or a citation, or might need to appear in court, and by law, you're allowed to represent yourself. But that might not be the smart thing to do. I'm sure there's a whole lot of stuff about law you may not know that you may need an attorney for.
True.
And the same thing relates to finance. There's a ton of information online and on social media and on YouTube, and you can get financial information from a lot of places. What I often tell clients is, like, I take the emotion out of it. And while you're worried about today, I'm worried about your tomorrow. And that's why you pay me, to worry about your tomorrow. And so I think that, there's certainly a lot of people that can do things on their own financially and make great financial decisions. One of the things that I do see is when I look at someone's balance sheet, or, they send me all their statements, I oftentimes walk away thinking they're not doing nearly as good as they think they're doing. They're just not, and they could be doing a lot better. And oftentimes I think there's a lack of discipline that they don't have. I think that people make a mistake of, maybe your friend or a sibling or coworker says, well, what about this investment, or what about this thing? And, they may have said they did it and they made money. But I tell people, by the time you hear about it, it's too late. I mean,
Good point.
and not only that, but whenever you get into investments, or whenever you get into, just investments in general, there are tax implications that people don't even know about.
Mm.
Right. And so, if your brother tells you, hey, I heard about this stock, I just made a bunch of money on it, you should do it too. I mean, well, how do you know you and your brother are in the same tax bracket? How do you know if it does make money,
Mm-hmm.
the gains may impact him in a way that don't impact you, or vice versa? You don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And so I think that there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there who are really good, but the vast majority of Americans probably need a professional. And I think there's a lot of evidence to support that, right? We tend to have a lot of student loan debt. We tend to,
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people who they want to buy a home right now. And, you know,
Mm.
depending on their circumstances, I may say, well, look, home prices are through the roof. This is top of the market.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll ask, like, are you buying your forever home? Is this the house you plan on retiring and dying in? Well, no, I might just be there 5 or 10 years. So I said, okay, let's think about that for a second. So last year, the real estate market was up 46%.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a property to sell, wonderful. You're making money hand over fist. But if you're buying a property, you're paying a premium for a property. So you buy it now and home prices are through the roof. Let's say you decide to only stay there 5 years or 10 years and then you're going to get another home after that. Well, that's going to affect how much money you make on it on the back end because the market's going to level out at some point. It's not
That's
going to be
true.
top of the market forever,
You're
right?
right about that.
So the question is, can you wait a year or two and see if the market comes back? See if we finally get out of this pandemic. See if we can get resources back in the country, like wood and things that you need, lumber to build homes. See if the labor force goes back into the market, which will bring down costs. Is there a wait and see? But we tend to be impatient, and that's why I say I take the emotion out of it, and that's one of the reasons you work with people like me. But there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, and like I said, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, yeah, you got a good point there. Because I mean, even with the used car market, because everybody didn't want to go get a new car, that drove up the used car
It's through
market.
the roof.
Where $2,000 car, like, oh, it's 10,000. Like, it was just two. Everybody wanted. Now supply and demand. Like,
Let me tell you, true
you want to
story.
pay 10 for that?
True story. One of my uncles, he lives in Georgia, and he bought a BMW not so long ago. And he told me he bought a BMW. He said a few weeks later, the dealership called him and asked would he sell it back because there was
Wow.
the greater demand on cars, and they could have, they could get more money buying it back and selling it at a higher clip just 3 weeks later. He just told me that. Like,
Wow.
so there's all these market forces that people they just don't consider.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it reminds me of when everyone was buying property back before the market crash, say 05, 06, things were
Oh yeah.
great. And all of a sudden 07 hits and things were terrible. Right. And so that's why I tell people, I look at historical data. I'm staring at numbers all day. I have personal experience. I have experience. Like, you only have your experience and maybe that of your family, right? Your parents, grandparents, siblings. And I'm talking to hundreds of people every year. I mean, I get all these
Mm-hmm.
different perspectives, and I can help provide you a perspective that maybe you don't have access to. So again, you don't know what you don't know, and so I think it's worth at least talking to people who do know.
No, you made a great point because the market seems like everything. I mean, in my loose opinion, I could be totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a lot of people are saying, well, we're kind of getting to a new normal. Everybody's going back outside. Let me raise prices and make some of that 2020 money I lost.
You know how I look at it, man.
Because people are they want to get outside. So I got gas, I got this. You're going to give me money, give it to me at a premium.
Somebody asked me the other day. They said, "Look, the mask mandates are starting to disappear, and people are kind of going back out and all this." And I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Let's wait and see the next major holiday." Because I saw this the last 2 years. Things get better, they ease up on restrictions, and then a major holiday, whether it's 4th of July,
Yeah.
whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, things skyrocket all over again. So let me see us get through some of the major holidays and see if things continue to be low, and then I'll know more about where we stand as a country. But there's too many variables, and even if the pandemic's getting better, well, Russia's invading the Ukraine. So there are other market forces out there.
Yeah, and that's driving some markets right now. That's like, okay.
I mean, I
Oh, 419 in Detroit. Okay.
so that's the thing, right? So
Bro, woo.
most people, we're worried about today, and it's my job to look at the historical facts as well as think about your tomorrow. So I'm 40 years old. And I think about just in my lifetime at
Mm-hmm.
40, I've been through 9/11. I've
Yep.
been through, well, even as an adult, because there was a market crash in the 80s and 90s as well, but just as an adult, right?
Yep.
So post 2000, I've been through 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through an Iraqi war.
Yep.
I've seen the first black president. I've
Yep.
been through the mortgage
Recession.
recession. I've
Mm-hmm.
been through a celebrity becoming president. I have
Yep.
I've been through a pandemic now,
Yep.
and now we're going into another war. That's just in my lifetime as an adult. So if you're 60 or 70, you've been through even more than what I've been through, right? So when I tell people who are even younger than I, let's say 25, 30, who are thinking about their futures, I always say there's going to be 10 or 15 world events that happen. And as it relates to a pandemic, certainly we haven't seen anything like this since the Spanish
No.
flu, I believe, in the 1920s. But there's been 6 or 7 other epidemics that's happened, right? SARS,
Yeah.
the was it the
Nothing is
swine
bad.
flu? There's been other things that's happened. They just didn't get as bad. This is the one that actually tipped the scale. So you live long enough, you're going to experience things. So the question is, how do you prepare for the ups and downs, whether it's financially, personally, or professionally? And that's where
Yeah.
I like to come in.
Yeah. To me, you got to play chess. Think 10 moves ahead because just the right now is ever fleeting. 2 hours, it could be something across social media that happened in 2 buck 2, for example, that's going to affect us later. You just don't know.
You got to be prepared. That's why think about your kitchen, right? You don't keep everything fresh in the refrigerator. You got canned goods that can last for years. You got stuff in
Yep.
the freezer, right? You keep different types of food that have different shelf lives. You never know what's going to happen. You eat it at
Mm.
different points. Save some for later. Eat some now. Well, treat your money the same way. Some's for now, some's for later. Some's for ups, some's for downs. It's the same premise.
That's true. One former guest and family, Robin Wilson, she put Junior Achievement offers quality programs that teach young people financial literacy skills.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to know. That's out here.
I,
Appreciate the
I
information, Robin.
No, it's great information, and I do want to say one thing as it relates to African Americans and Black people when it comes to money. I believe personally that there's a
Mhm.
misconception that we don't know enough about money, and the truth is there are certainly things that we don't know. There's things that just the average American in general doesn't know, but Black people on average are better savers than our white counterparts. And
Okay.
when people say that, when I say that, people are like, "Are you sure?" Yeah, think about it. So just think about how far your parents may have stretched a penny or two, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, mine will
we
make meals last for a minute.
right, our families have managed to stretch money in ways that other groups have not. And so there's statistics to back that up. There's been plenty of studies shown that we save. One of the bigger issues is that even though we save, one of the reasons we save less is because incomes aren't equal, which is another issue,
Yeah,
right? Home equity is not equal. You have comparable homes in a Black area and a white area for whatever reason, a number of reasons. That same house is worth more in a white neighborhood than a Black neighborhood, even though the owners have comparable credit and
facts.
comparable incomes. So those are reasons that lead to us having these gaps. Not that, we're buying cars and sneakers and partying. Both sides do all of that. There's other reasons that contribute to maybe our people having less money.
But the crazy thing, and I learned this in my business class, we spend 1.3 trillion a year. And I'm in class like, what did I just say? It's like, yes, African American community. And I looked it up like, I never knew we did that. Like, dog, what the hell? Then I started thinking, like, well, just think about people you encounter, what you see on social media. Like, yeah, you get some Jordans, the next 6 out for limited time, 400. Someone's gonna buy it. Gucci, whatever the brand name that's out or that comes up and coming that's new, we're gonna buy it. Like, yeah, we do.
I look, you can't see this. I'm in my home office, but I've got a wall full of Jordans. I've got a garage full of them, and I've got a closet full of them. And I tell people all the time, I want you to save, and I want to get us on track to saving to a point where you've got more than enough money for your life goals and for retirement. But also, I want to make sure that you live your life. And so I don't believe that anyone should work every day and not be able to enjoy life and buy things that they like. And I think that each individual has to decide, well, what money is for important things like education and a home and retirement, and how much do I have, how much discretionary money do I have to buy sneakers or get my hair and nails done or do whatever. I one of the things I do think that we do that isn't right is, I think in our community we shame people when we see them driving a nice car or we see them having something nice that we think that they can't afford. you know, I don't know what you can and can't afford. I don't know what your
That's
numbers
true.
look like. None of us really know until you
No.
know. And so I think that if somebody wants to buy a nice car, if they can afford it, or a nice pair of shoes or a Gucci bag, if you can afford it, by all means. Now, obviously, there's an issue if you're buying those things and your child doesn't have food to eat, or your rent isn't paid, or your lights are cut off. That's different. Uh, but there's a myth that, at least I believe in some of the data I've seen, there's a myth that we are we mismanage money more than other ethnic groups, and that's not true. That's not true at all.
Spotlight on
I
us,
think,
Mark.
yeah, it's always on us. I was telling my wife this one day. I said, look, you know, let's say you saw a black dude with a BMW, a young black guy, and you're probably thinking, "Well, why does he lives in an apartment? Why does he have a BMW? He should probably buy his house first, and before he gets a car. He probably should, right?" But not too far from where I live, there's a trailer park, and that's a largely white community. And one of the things that I notice all the time is there's a lot of pickup trucks out there,
Mm-hmm.
expensive looking pickup trucks.
The nice ones.
Right. Yet these folks live in a trailer park. So what's the difference of a white American having a $50,000 pickup truck living in a trailer park versus a black American having a $50,000 BMW living in an apartment? There is no difference. It's the exact same thing. It's how we perceive it differently as society. Both could be poor financial decisions. Both could be great financial decisions. I
Yeah.
don't know until I see their numbers, but our immediate thought is the black person is spending their money unwisely, when that may or may not be true. So, let me
Yeah.
get off my soapbox.
Oh, no,
But
you good.
yeah,
My only advice would be take care of your main stuff and then do you.
you have to you have to be
Whoever you
smart
are.
with your money.
If
Yeah, you
need
have
to
to
pay
be
your
smart.
rent, you need to pay your rent before you go get whatever. Because if you go ask someone, they're gonna ask, okay, what happened? They might say, wait a minute, you bought Jordans instead of take care of this. What?
You have to take care. You have to take care of your business, and that's what it boils down to. You've got to take care of your business, which is why it's important. The younger you start, saving, even if it's $20 a month, it has such a greater impact. The earlier you get your first job at 18 or 19 or 20, whatever it is, and they offer a 401k plan, as soon as you're eligible, put in whatever you can. $10, 1% of your income, whatever it is, get it in there early, because it will reap benefits long term. But like I said, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
That's true. That's good advice though, man. Because money is an issue that, especially in our community, we don't talk about enough to get a better understanding that it can work for you instead of just I got it. It's Friday. I need to go spend it.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons we don't talk about, one of the reasons we don't talk about it enough in our community is, I think there may be, within individual families, there may be some embarrassment because maybe parents don't know enough about it. So they feel like, well, I don't want to talk to my kids because that may open the door to me not being able to answer their questions, which is fair. And there's, like I said, within the internal workings of everyone's home, you never know what's going on. You never know what people know, what they don't know. But I believe that there's opportunities to break those curses of financial illiteracy, and break those curses of passing on debt, and pass on wealth, and pass on knowledge, and help people. I am a huge believer in, my grandfather did a little bit better than his dad. My mom did a little bit better than my grandfather, and I'm doing better than my mom. If every generation does a little bit better,
Going in
at
the right
some
direction.
point, our ancestors, or I'm sorry, our grandkids and great someone's going to turn it all the way around. Just take
That's true.
baby steps in whatever time you've got on this planet. You don't have to do it all that in one generation. Just take baby steps. And for me, I mentioned earlier, I originally wanted to be an attorney, and I ended up being a banker and then a financial advisor. Well, one of my brothers is now an attorney, and one of my sisters is she's also in mental health. And for my mom, she passed away at 56 of breast cancer. But I'll tell you what, she used to always say, "I want to give you guys." I have 4 siblings. She said, "I want to give you guys a leg up," and she had a rough financial life early in her life. She had me when she was 19, and my siblings later when she was in her 30s. But she always said she wanted to give us a leg up. And even though things were rough for her financially in her 20s and 30s, when she got to her 40s and then 50s, she completely turned her life around financially so that she left us with something when she was no longer going to be here. And that made a hell of a difference, in my opinion, for us. So, we went to school and we have careers, but also getting an inheritance, that matters. That matters so much when your parents can leave you something, leave you a home, or leave you money, or leave you a life insurance policy, or whatever it is, just leave you something, right? And she was able to do that. And I take great pride in that. So for me moving forward, I want to do the same thing for my son. Exact same thing. Like my son's, my grandfather and my mom didn't work hard for me to screw up and not leave something to my kids. So my goal is to do the exact same thing.
And keep paying for it.
Yep.
So what's some way someone can become more financial literate, in your opinion?
Well, I think that people have to look for resources, right? So there's a lot of great information on social media. There's a lot of great information online. I think I tell people all the time, reach out to different financial firms, see if they've got financial advisors. Most banks have financial advisors on staff. There are places like my company and other places that have financial advisors. Google financial advisor and look up some people in your area and meet with 2 or 3, meet with as many as you need to find one that understands your financial situation, does not judge you, maybe is of your culture, because I think when it comes to money, culture matters. You might meet the first one you meet, they may be terrible. They may not be a great fit. Don't be deterred, right? Don't be deterred.
Keep going.
But before I was an advisor, I took my younger brother and my younger sister to get an advisor. My mom was getting ready to die. She was leaving them money. They were fresh out of college. And my mom said to me, don't, take them to meet somebody. Don't let them just blow through this money, because she wouldn't be here to bail them out anymore. She didn't just go buy a new car or something with their cash. So I took them to see a financial advisor, a Black woman. And that Black woman met with us for 45 minutes. And at the end of that meeting, she said to my 2 siblings, "You two do not have $250,000 in investable assets. I don't work with clients like you." Now, in that moment, she could have said, you know what? I don't think I'm the right advisor for you, but I do know with advisors that work with recent college graduates, right? Like that would have been an appropriate thing to say.
Yeah, that'd been more
or she could have been empathetic and said, "You guys are 24 and 25 and your mom is dying in 6 months and you're going to be all alone." Like there's more empathy that could have been given. Not to mention, let's say they didn't have enough money to work with her. She didn't even consider, well, I'm 10 years older than they are. Well, me and my wife, we could have been clients for you, right? At the time, I was a banker. I worked with businesses that had up to $30 million in revenue. I have clients that maybe I could have referred to you. She didn't even see any of that, right?
You're right.
She didn't see any of that. So that was also one of the reasons why I ended up getting into advising, because I thought that, there weren't enough great people out there reaching out to our community. And so I think that people, like I said, just Google financial advisor in your area and go from there. And look, one of the things that's happened with the pandemic is, like myself, I'm based in Maryland. So obviously I have a lot of clients in Maryland, DC, Virginia, and Delaware, but I have clients in New York City. I've got clients in Buffalo, New York. I've got clients in Michigan. Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, um, Georgia. That's the power of Zoom. So I've got clients I've never physically met because they're comfortable meeting with Zoom. And my clients in New York, I've told them, hey, when I get up there, I'll just when I get up there just for my own personal vacation and to see the Knicks play. I'm a Lakers fan, but when the Lakers go play the Knicks
Oh
at
yeah,
Madison Square
Lakers
Garden, I
fans
go up
too.
there. Yeah, I go up there and I see them. So I said, hey, when I get up to New York next time, we'll just meet, just because I haven't met you physically before. But you can meet with people remotely. Maybe you feel more comfortable meeting somebody in person, but you can have an advisor in another state as long as they're licensed in your state. They can work with you. So that's what I would say. Just you're not alone. You don't have to do it on your own. There are people like me that want to work with anyone, and so just look professionals up.
Yeah, we got your website going across, Alexander Hollingsworth.nm.com.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's watching or will watch the replay of it, check him out. Seem to be a good brother trying to help you figure it out. Have you faced any challenges?
Oh yeah. Look, I always say this, man. Black folks, we're gonna face challenges like that. Like we are going to face challenges, man.
Yeah.
We look, we don't have it nearly as hard as our ancestors had in the 60s
Nah,
or during
ain't
slavery.
that
We don't what they went through, we don't go through.
nah.
But we are not without challenges. And so as it relates to my profession, only 5% of financial advisors are black. Only
Whoa,
5%.
didn't know
So
that.
there's a low number of us. And in many professions, many professional careers, there is a disproportionate amount of other races versus ours. So there's only 5% of us are black. And then I personally, it's not enough to overcome. Someone gives me their numbers, how much they make, how much they want to save, where their money is
Mhm.
going. It's not enough to just do the math. I have to undo things that they've learned that might be detrimental. I have
Okay.
to understand their circumstances in ways that maybe other advisors don't have to, right? And so I have to understand, well, oftentimes our families just aren't nuclear. Our families just aren't mom, dad, parent, child, right?
No.
Like our families are like my grandparents raised me till I was 15. So my grandmother, she also died before 57, like my mom did, but my grandfather's still alive. As far as I'm concerned, my grandfather's my father, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to understand family dynamics in a way that other groups may not have to. And in a lot of ways, our people are skeptical of financial institutions, and rightfully so, right? Rightfully so.
Yeah.
I remember during the mortgage crash in '07, Countrywide Mortgage got in a lot of trouble because they did a lot of predatory lending, and they were giving higher rates to African Americans who had comparable credit and incomes to white
Read about
Americans.
that.
Yep, they got a huge fine. Eventually, that led to Bank of America buying them. But you know, we have there is not an industry in this world that we're not discriminated in. Not an industry. So as it relates to
Unfortunately.
finance, we get discriminated against. And so when I call a potential client or someone's referred to me, they're naturally skeptical. I'd say 9 out of 10 clients are naturally skeptical. And I have to overcome that skepticism. And sometimes for a white advisor, they may be able to bring a new client on in 2 or 3 meetings. It might take me 10 meetings to bring on a black client. And that's okay. That is okay. They need to vet me the
Gotta
same
get
way I'm
out the
vetting
mud.
them.
Gotta
Yeah,
get out the mud.
so there are certainly challenges. There are days where, I'll tell my wife, I've got this great potential client. There's so much that they can do, but they can't get over their own fears. And those are days when I just say, now is not the time for that client. Maybe 6 months down the road, maybe a year. I
Mm-hmm.
can't force anybody. I'm going to give
No.
you all the information that you need. And sometimes it's all about timing. But like I said, we face challenges. So
I got you, bro. I always say get it out the mud, figure it out, give it to God. You know. Last question. What
sure.
advice do you have for someone trying to find their purpose?
I would say, man, try a lot of different things. If you find your purpose when you get out of college, wonderful. For a
Yeah.
lot of us, it takes, a lot of missteps and a lot of restarts. And
In there.
sometimes you don't, you think you're supposed to know what you want to do at 25, but you may not find it until 40. You may not find it until 50. So just try different things. Open your mind. Um, you know, Even if there are doubters in your circle, if your friends don't believe in you or if your family is skeptical, you know, give it a shot. You get one shot at this life, man. I mean, unless you're Jesus, you ain't
Yeah.
coming back. This is it. This is it. So
You're right.
you got one shot on this earth, and it's but a whisper. And so just try different things. Find out what your purpose is. Enjoy life, and don't get caught up in all of the bad things that happen in this world. You have to be conscious of them. You have to prepare for them. But figure out what matters to you. Years ago,
Hmm.
I had this job, and I was making really, really good money, but I hated it. Absolutely hated it.
Mm.
And I ended up leaving that job and taking a job that paid $10,000 less. Willingly paid. I
Oh,
took a
wow.
job that paid less, but one, it was for my own sanity. I was happier, even though I was making 10,000 less. I was coming home happier every day. And long term, I made that money back tenfold. So sometimes you have to take a couple steps back to take a step forward, and that's just life. So that if I have any advice, then that it would be it. That would be it.
Brother, that's some great advice you just gave. For real. Sometimes it's hard to take a step back.
It is, but you can find yourself stuck in place for the wrong reasons, and it can impact other parts of your life. And for me, it made me really unhappy. So I took a step back, and looking back years later, it was the right decision because my life has flourished, and I'm grateful for my wife, and I I couldn't be happier.
That's awesome. Now you say you got a podcast. What's your podcast about?
So I have one, but I don't actively podcast anymore. But
Okay.
I have a Lakers podcast, and a
Okay.
podcast with a couple of my buddies called Off the Record. I don't podcast as much as I used to. I'm too busy these days. But for years, I used to do a lot of Lakers coverage because, like I said, I'm a big Lakers fan. I just don't do it
Yeah.
as much as I used to.
Yeah, I'm a Lakers fan, but I'm waiting on LeBron to retire, man. He don't believe in playing with young people. Got all these old fuddy duddies, and they look old and fuddy. Like the Rockets whooped you up. The Rockets. Mm-mm.
It's been a rough season, but I think we'll be back next year. That's all I can hope for.
Yeah, we can hope to get back on track. Be respectable, because
Yep.
I don't even watch the games now. The highlights are just depressing. Like, okay, you did give us a title. Respect. Give them that.
Yeah, it gave us a title in what might have been the worst modern day NBA year. I mean, a year where there's COVID, the league shuts down, and Kobe Bryant passes away. I don't know if there's
Yeah,
a worse
my man.
time to, you know. So yeah, shout out to LeBron and Anthony Davis and those guys for getting that title because that was a, I Kobe is my guy.
Me too.
I was at his final game in LA. My wife and I were
Oh,
there.
that was bananas watching that
Yeah,
on TV.
it was nuts, man. I'm grateful that we were able to experience that, and so for him to pass away the way that he did, and his daughter and those other 7 individuals,
Mhm.
that's a terrible way for anyone to go.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say, also, man, I said this earlier, enjoy life, enjoy it
You never know.
because you really do not know. You could be doing everything right, and some idiot's driving down the street speeding and hit you. You don't know. So enjoy
Mhm.
life. Enjoy life.
True. Yeah, I'm trying to take this around the globe, get it cracking.
Mm-hmm.
And with great people like yourself, willing to share your journey to inspire someone to find their purpose, pretty awesome, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you for doing the show, sharing your journey. Want to thank financial advisor Alex Hollingsworth. Go to his website, alexanderhollingsworth.nm.com. Check him out. He help you make some good financial choices for your future.
I'm gonna
Last
try.
words, bro?
Now, Jeffrey, man, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate what you do, highlighting the careers and the journeys of African Americans out there. I've seen a number of people on here, so I greatly appreciate you uplifting people like me. So I'm grateful
Well,
to you. Thank you.
I mean, the mission God put me on, regular people doing amazing things. So if someone failed at their purpose or is hesitant to start, well, this person no different than me. It ain't LeBron, but I could do what they're doing and become a LeBron or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tangible, real people doing amazing things. So you can at least do some research.
Yep.
That ain't gonna kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Getting your phone, laptop, figure out what you should be doing. Go ask God.
Yep.
And it's catching. It's gonna go global and be profitable at some point where I can start doing more to help people. But people like you are helping me. You are episode 102 now. So y'all definitely helping me keep it growing. I appreciate it.
Got to speak it into existence, man.
Oh yeah, we gonna be global, man. I'm be the courtside talking smack to a ref. Like that's ain't a foul. What you talking about? Respect the first one go. You know. Then one day our Pistons are gonna be good again. I'm gonna go to that game. I show love to the Dicks. Well, I hope you have an amazing evening, man. Had to get you on again for another financial lesson.
Thank you.
Get this information out so people understand about their money.
I agree, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do the editing and all that, and I'm gonna send you a copy in the messenger.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Till next time, everybody. Have a great night.